All right, and we are live. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining us right now, I'm not sure if anyone's on the stream yet, but welcome. If you're watching this at a later time, glad to have you here to join us. We do this every single week. This is open office hours where we take the time to answer your questions to help you get unstuck so you can reach your goals. So whether it's questions about startups, UX or UI design, product strategy, validating a business idea you have, maybe something with your teams. Maybe you want to find better ways to manage and grow your teams. Maybe it's like operationalizing things and making things better across your teams. We can answer all those questions for you, and we'll do it to the best of our ability. So I'll just kind of intro myself. My name is Jacob Miller. I'm the marketing and brand manager at Headway. So I help with things like this, like open office hours. We do videos on our YouTube channel. Obviously, that's where this is located. We also do a bunch of blog content, some ebooks, all that kind of stuff. So anything marketing, I'm involved in it, and I help make it happen. So I can hand it over to Andrew now.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Andrew Verbancore, one of the partners and the CEO at Headway. Excited to help get you unstuck. I don't know. We're not really keeping track of how many episodes or sessions it's been, but we've been doing it live here on YouTube for I think since the beginning of the year. I forget exactly
Hmm.
when, but it's been fun to get your questions and find questions from around the web that kind of speak to how we might think about helping launch startups or launching companies or issues that you come across as you dig into it and really think about how do you go from an idea to an existing product, a business, how do you work with people, all those things that we have experience with both on our team and then also helping coach other founders through. So excited to chat through that and um, yeah, answer your questions. So feel free, as Jacob mentioned, to drop them in the comments. And if you want to join, which is mentioned below, if you want to share your screen on anything specific, design, dev, strategy, marketing related, um, feel free to ask, and we'll send that over for you to join the stream.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Well, I think we don't have any questions that come in on YouTube, but as usual, we always find questions on Reddit that are really, really helpful, I think, for a lot of people that are joining us. So I think we can start there. So this first question is, he kind of elaborates a little further, but they share, do I still need a co-founder? So this person asks, I know this question's been asked many times before, but it seems like I couldn't relate to it with most of the answers that I found. So a little quick background, I graduated with a degree in supply chain and been working for a company for the past few years. Over time, I realized that the industry is not something I want to be a part of in the long run. So I decided I want to launch a platform that would streamline an issue that I noticed while working in that business. Did my research, got validation, have a business and development plan all figured out. But they share, since I'm no expert on the technical side, I've decided I would seek help from a development agency. And I'm mainly using this approach because it's almost impossible to find a co-founder where I live. And the agency has done similar projects in the past. Is it still required to bring in a technical co-founder if A, I plan on outsourcing the work anyways, B, I plan on bootstrapping the entire thing with my own funds without seeking outside investment, and C, I have the funds to hire a technical consultant to assist me with any dev issues that I might encounter. So they also share they plan to keep learning as much as they can as they go along. And but the notion that every startup needs two founders is something that's been engraved in stone in the startup world. So any feedback is appreciated.
Yeah, this is a good question and one, that we get a lot when we work with different founders on, hey, can Headway play the technical co-founder role? Can they present us in pitches and things like that? And we definitely have to investors and to other folks as well, even customers. But I think there's Paul Graham and YC, they take a pretty stringent approach to it. They believe something and maybe it's just their way of hedging their bets to say like they think that founders that can lean on each other when things get tough are more likely to make it through. But I did a couple quick searches here while Jacob was reading that, and I'll just share my screen just to show you. The big thing I was wondering is like, what are some recognizable startups? And I knew a few of these um, that essentially had exited or were single co-founders. So Jeff Bezos, Amazon, single co-founder, single founder. Henry Ford, ServiceNow, which is a company that does service scheduling and all kinds of stuff in different industries. eBay, Craigslist, Magic Leap. Sarah Blakely at Spanx, Tumblr. So you see a good mix of tech in here, along with like solo products and things like that. Marcus Friend at Plenty of Fish. And you can see some of them have exited, some of them are still continuing on. Um, but I think there's a big myth, and there's also this study that I found that was also on TechCrunch, essentially saying like the percentage of companies with a successful exit by number of founders. They're saying that, you know, almost half of those that have successful exits are with one founder, and then almost half of those that have one founder have achieved funding. So I think like the YCs of the world and Paul Graham and a lot of their startups, it can be true. I mean, this probably isn't representative of everything. Looks like they have, 6,000 companies here in this sample size, 7,000 here. So you definitely can make it, right? There's recognizable brands that have had individual founders. Dropbox is probably the big one. The asterisk here, later asked to find a co-founder. Um, but I think like as far as starting your idea, I don't think you should wait to have a co-founder and wait to have a technical person on your team. We talked about this in one of our presentations for Startup Week this past fall around like, do I need a developer or a tech lead or a technical co-founder to launch my startup? And we say no. Like you probably shouldn't even build anything in order to start. You should focus on the customer, the problem, defining that really well, and then getting them to a win with something more manual or something like that. So I would say it's still possible. When it makes sense, Headway does play that role for teams that are looking for, and I'm sure there's other agencies out there that do that, where essentially you're not just taking a backlog of items, but you're helping provide technical oversight. And I think any partner that you look for should also consider the technology that you're building in, the environment for talent in that technology. So making sure to set you up for future success, and then helping to really make sure that things are documented well. Your reasons for choosing certain tech, certain libraries documented well, as you have an external partner, so that as people come into your org, whether that's a tech co-founder later or your first CTO hire or whatever that might be, you have a good base in the history of decisions that have been made and really the reasons why those decisions were made. So to answer the question, do I still need a co-founder? I would argue no. I've seen a lot of companies that that start out with that, with just kind of some tips on working with a dev agency or a technical partner, making sure that you're understanding the reasons you're choosing certain tech and what that's going to help your startup do.
That's great. Yeah, I loved all the details you kind of shared. Good to have like those articles and some of that key data as like evidence. Like, hey, it's been done before. Here's the numbers. Like it's not true that you need a co-founder. So awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. All right. I don't see any questions on YouTube yet, but we'll jump to the next question. All right. So this one's about support tools, processes for feature requests, etc. So I'm going to dive into the question. So this person shares, we hope to launch our startup in the summer, mobile and web interface, and it's consumer focused. I was wondering what tools and processes you use to capture support and feature requests. How do you triage, evaluate, ensure that issues and questions are not ignored or fall through the cracks? And we're looking to outsource support, but would be interested in user-driven community support as an additional function. Yeah, any thoughts or tools that you're aware of that can help with that process?
Yeah, support tools. We talk about a lot on this show for more of the behavioral design stuff that nudges, but Intercom's a great tool for that. They have early startup or early stage startup pricing as well. So they have a application process where you, instead of paying $500-600 a month for their tools, you can get their suite of tools. Where there's a caveat, there's a couple premium tools you don't get access to, but you can get all of their tools for a year at only $49 a month, which is really good for startups to really figure out and start generating revenue to then, you know, essentially make it make sense to continue past that first year. But they offer in-app support and chats, and the good thing about them, so they're probably similar to Zendesk in that where you can have an in-app chat. If you've seen a chat window on a website, you can capture leads through that and be able to talk with people. You can also chat with specific users on that, and then be able to have internal conversations and internal notes. So if it's you, let's say you did hire, or have community support or something, they also have a knowledge base tool. that is tied into that early stage plan. So you can have the in-app support where you can reference materials, or you can even have a search for people to say, hey, I'm looking for how to do X. Like I can't do this with my account, or how do I reset, my billing or something. You would be able to just point to and automatically serve up using the intercom bots that knowledge base article for them. So definitely something that I would make up, or I would look into, that really is just one spot. The other tools we've used include Zendesk to be able to capture those. There are some prioritization tools. I'm trying to think of some of the names out there. We usually will do this based on requests that come in, but there's some roadmap planning tools that, as features get requested by your users, they can kind of upvote it, almost like a product hunt style, or like a Reddit style, where they can upvote certain features and requests. You can start to get a gauge for, hey, what does my community want? So capturing feature requests there, I think, is beneficial. The other one, the one thing to triage, evaluate, and ensure issues and questions are not ignored. Intercom gives you all that data around, like, what's your mean time to respond, what things are open. It gives you a really good inbox. And let me see if I can actually open this up and share this. So Intercom is what I mentioned. So they have different solutions here. They have that conversational support, which is really, a human. That's one-on-one support. They have self-serve, so answer repetitive questions. That's where they'll link into the base and use the bot. And then proactive, so reaching out to people ahead of time. They have these ticketing workflows, which I think makes sense whether you or someone on your team is doing things. The other one would be, trying to find where their knowledge base tools at. And perhaps it's behind the purchase. Yeah, here's a lot. So help center articles. So essentially, you can call up these, whether you're doing human support or doing search, you can be able to surface up those knowledge base articles to your users through that, and then be able to see all of the analytics around who's viewed it. And then they have a rating system built into those, whether or not they were helpful. So hey, do we need to update this FAQ? Do we need to update this best practice? So I'd recommend definitely that. And one thing with user requests is making sure that you actually go talk to the users and understand the why behind the request. I think a lot of times it's easy to just see, oh, a lot of people have requested this, let's just give them what they want, without understanding, why do they want it? What's their motivation? Is it a potential feature that you could charge additional for? And, what's the best way to solve it? So really take it one step further, and after you get those requests in through support, go and try to have conversations with those people, get them on the phone for 15, 20 minutes, and really be able to dig into what it would mean to them. And even, what we'd recommend is, like, as you prototype out new solutions from feature requests, getting those same people involved, and as you bring it to life, using prototypes, or even, early proof of concepts to test those out and get feedback on.
Great, awesome, love it. If anyone is listening here on YouTube and has a question, feel free to answer. We haven't had any questions coming from there yet. And whether it's a question about, if you have a startup idea, if you work at a startup or work, on a development team or a design team, we're happy to answer any questions you may have today. So thanks again for joining us. So we're glad you're here. All right, we can go on to the next question, which I think is kind of common, a common thought for anybody that ends up joining a startup or part of a product team. And the question is, should the developers be a part of the ideation process in a startup? So this person shares a little bit of background. I'm a software engineer. Most of my work experience was in enterprise companies. As a team, we had a chance in the business grooming or refinement sessions to discuss the business features and suggest a change so product owners can take it back to business owners and suggest them. This sometimes gives us a feeling like we own the product and care more about it. So they recently joined a startup, not as a co-founder, but as an early joiner. The application they're building's in fintech. There's so much to learn, as it is a trendy field nowadays. The reason I joined is financially, ESOPs, and mainly I want to be a part of the first great fintech product in a place where only traditional banks are the actual giants. However, I find that only meetings I'm requested to attend is only sprint planning, the ideation and business study, and discussing the future of the product. What's next? Meetings are only for co-founders. The only ownership we have is is a technical one, and to be honest, there's room for creativity there. So their question is, in a new startup, are the co-founders the only owners of the product, or am I mistaken that I should be part of this whole product ownership thing? I'm asking because I want to understand the business and want to feel like I'm a part of the whole futuristic vision and not just an employee. This whole startup culture is new to me, and I want to learn from your experience.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think one that a lot of teams are wondering if they're not really taking a cross-functional team approach. It sounds like things are getting planned and decided, much further ahead of getting essentially to development. So, our recommendation, or I guess the question is, should the developers be part of the ideation process in a startup? We would say yes, 100%. We do different processes on our end for prioritization and really try to own the experience together. And part of owning that experience together owns, everybody collaborating from ideation to the end product, till it's in users' hands, and really owning the iteration that you have once you can learn from someone's behavior and how they're using it. But definitely, you know, recommend that you should be part of the whole product ownership thing. I think there's definitely meetings um, that you don't have to be in. I think it's more art than a science, and really understanding the balance that your startup has for how fast you need to move and the demands from customers versus setting new things or setting the vision for new features and functionality. So making sure that we call it craft within context, like being able to understand what you're trying to achieve for a specific user, a feature, the outcomes you're trying to get to, understand the value you're adding to somebody, all really important things for you to empathize and really own. And then, use that craft within context to say, hey, we have this feature. When it gets to you finally on the roadmap, you then know and have the context to push back and say, this is actually going to take us 8 days to do. If we peel this back and do it this other way, that's only going to take us 8 hours, right? And so you have this trade-off, and you have the context of understanding what you're trying to get users to, the outcome you're trying to get them to, and you can be more, I guess, more lenient with how we solve it, and how you solve it, how you recommend to solve it. So, in a startup, moving fast on the right things is often more important than, the 8 days it would take you to do the thing to, full completion. So understanding how you could carve out a feature, understand a user's outcome and what they're trying to get to, and then say, hey, with this certain approach, we could get there differently, and really allow those constraints to drive your creativity. So
That's great. Yeah.
recommendations for getting involved, I think, would be, probably the first area point of pain, or maybe the point of focus for you would be to look at the existing roadmap and see, hey, based on your understanding of all the goals for users, what are some things that could likely be broken apart into multiple phases where you could get the user there faster, you could deploy these and really maximize your time to learning versus maximizing your time to ship something that's more polished or more in depth. How could
Hmm.
you do a smaller cut of that same feature that would get, and then bring that to the team and say, hey, if I was involved in more of these, here's how, here's the conversations I could have, and that'll help us inform how we serve our customers better, and really show them by using an example of how you might come in and interject and, give a different path forward for the technology.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's just, finding the right way to have the conversation with the leadership team to, uh, so it's not like saying like you're, you don't want to be whining about that you're not part of it. You have to kind of like prove it, like, hey, if we do this in a different way, it can be better for everybody, better for our
Right.
customers, better for our company, better for the team in general. Just, everyone being more excited about what's going on. So for sure. Um, well, awesome. Well, we have a question here from Joe on YouTube. So thanks for asking this question, Joe. Shares, I work for a traditional slash non-startup business, but realize there appear to be more opportunities for me in startups. So how can someone in my spot break into the startup world in any role?
It's a good question, Joe. I'm trying to think here. I think, the any opportunity starts with the first one. So trying to figure out, how do your skills translate into that? And I think, having a good idea of how your experience in your more traditional business would apply to a startup, and understanding what roles startups call them. Like for an example, um, in the corporate world, they call people BAs, where they might be more of a product manager slash project manager that's gathering requirements, not quite a scrum master, not quite a product owner. So I think just depending on what your skill set is today, understanding like what are you aspiring to and what roles align more closely with your strengths, or with your strengths where you'll be able to push yourself and identify areas for growth, but still be able to deliver and be able to contribute at a good pace for the startup. So I would say, one, identifying a role that might be role or roles that would be good for your skill set, and then starting to take a look at what's out there for for startups. I think it'd be interesting to for you to then just even start interviewing and use it as an experiment and see like, well, what are the reasons people don't think I'm a good fit? What are the areas I can grow? And then maybe you can start to carve out some personal growth paths, whether that's through courses on Udemy or through courses on like product-led growth, or other courses for communities in those areas you want to grow. Um, the other thing that I've seen a lot of folks do, and this is true in design development and also product, but being able to build up your own case study for something. So if your current skills don't really speak to that, you're not really showcasing it, creating a startup of your own and actually trying to go through the process, whatever that means to you in your current role, I think would be helpful, so that you can bring that forward as a case study of, hey, here's how I think about it, here's how we're approaching it, and have something to connect that startup experience to, where you say, hey, this is kind of a midpoint. I haven't contributed at a startup yet, but I've done this in my role. And also I'm really passionate and curious about this space. So I actually went out and started going through this process. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Joe.
Yeah, Joe said thanks. So I think we hit the mark there. Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
I am kind of curious, like what specifically he's looking into. If there's specific roles, because we definitely could help answer the question a little more clearly. I mean, everything you shared was great, but if there's anything specifically, there's a lot of great resources we could point them to, besides just saying Udemy or whatever. So yeah, well, awesome. Well, we can move on to the next question. Right. So this next one, I think it's kind of similar to the last Reddit question we answered, um, but it's about operationalizing a startup. Um, so this person shared, um, we're a SaaS startup with about 15 members and all working remote in the US time zones. As a founder, I'm trying to operationalize a set of regular meetings with the team to run the business. Currently, we have a weekly all hands, weekly staff meetings, and one-on-ones. Teams feel like it's a lot of meetings. And I'm trying to balance between the right amount of meetings and team building and effective communication. Any advice here is appreciated. What set of meeting cadence has worked well for you? And are there any good articles or resources on this topic? I did a simple Google search and did not find anything useful.
Yeah, it's a good question, and one that everyone has to has to answer. How much meeting is too much meetings. I think for us, what we default to, and Headway is built on EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system, which comes in with 6 key components of a company. Part of that is like meeting cadence and pulse, and also this concept of scorecards. So every seat on the company has a metric that they're tracking to, has some goal in mind that we're tracking to, and then each department has a scorecard for how they measure success and what that means. And so with EOS, they have a weekly meeting pulse called L10s, which are level 10 meetings, essentially where you go through a series of processes. Let me see if I can pull up an example here. You go through a series of processes where you have your quarterly objectives. So I guess maybe if we start back from the beginning of the year with EOS as an example, you have a 2-day annual meeting. And that 2-day annual meeting is to set the vision for the company for the year, revisit your what they call the VTO or the Vision Traction Organizer, review your core focus or your core target. That's your 10-year target that's coming up. Review your marketing strategy and plan, your differentiators, all of those, and say, hey, is this still true? Really gives you a good day to pause and really think through who you're serving today. Is that different than who you're serving in the future? And be more strategic. Then you get into this what is called weekly pulsing, or bi-weekly pulsing if you're having departmental meetings. It depends on how much you're meeting, but essentially you are going into 60 to 90-minute meetings. EOS says 90 minutes, where you're going through and you're reviewing, hey, these are our quarterly rocks. These are the most important things for the company to complete in the next year. You then go into an issues list, which is like a dumping ground for all the things that aren't on fire, that are important, that you talk about with your team or with your leadership team or with your department. But you have this space carved out every week, so you can just start adding things. And then when you go through the issues, you are supposed to prioritize the top 3 things. Take a look at the list. That could include urgency, that could include biggest issues that you have, and just making sure you understand and are tackling those 3 things. And then you pick the top one, and you work through that in a process that's called IDS. So identify, define what the problem is, and then solve it. And the next part of that is the to-do list, which are the things you're committing to complete by the next meeting. And so that's the weekly meeting pulse. The next one is that you look at. We do an all hands forum every Friday at Headway. Not really an all hands presentation. We have for us, with multiple projects and everything going on, multiple product teams, we do a share out once a month of all the projects, just to keep people in the loop of what folks are working on, be able to dig into context of the other projects that people aren't on day to day. Then we have an all hands once a month. For us, we used to have that once a quarter, which we found wasn't really enough to keep people informed, or there were questions that would still come up. So we moved to monthly. Stand-ups, I think, is going to depend on your product team. Does it make sense for your whole team to meet and do a stand-up? Does it make sense for your departments to do stand-ups together? Are there small groups inside of your company that are doing stand-ups cross-functionally? So I think that all depends. But I think the EOS models worked out really well for us. We moved to EOS in 2018 and have really embraced it over the years, and finally have it fully installed inside of Headway, inside of all our departments. Marketing has a L10 weekly, sales has an L10 weekly, design has one, development's a little bit different because it's a larger org, and then product has an L10 as well, and as well does our leadership team. So those are all ways for you to connect. And in EOS, there's a concept of an integrator, and that integrator attends all of the essential L10s every week to connect the major facets of the business together. So you get kind of a project sync, which is what we do, where we have project stand-ups with our product teams on specific projects, and then we have a department-based L10 every week. So essentially, you're getting 2 different views. Hey, one, how's the product team doing as a whole? And then 2, how's the department doing as a whole? And what do we need to do? Whether that's hiring new people, setting onboarding processes, setting your goals for the quarter, all of those things together. So those have worked really well for us, and I know many other agencies and actual startups that are using that same cadence.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that EOS process is applicable to just about any type of business. I think a lot of times people think that startups have to have some kind of unique program that's like it only helps startups. Where I think there's a lot of models out there that are applicable to any kind of business, right? Because it's not necessarily about what they do, but how they make it happen. So. Yeah, awesome. So we have another question here that I found that I thought was I think something that a lot of people, at least founders, can kind of struggle with. And this person asked, where might I go to find a mentor in the SaaS space? So I'll give a little bit of context. They share, I've built businesses before, mostly successful, and I'm in the midst of building my first software as a service. I've been at it for nearly a year now, and we're on the brink of launch, but I'm starting to feel quite overwhelmed. I've definitely felt this before, the whole identity crisis thing, where I'm not sure if I can handle what comes next or if I'm meant for this. However, I know that'll pass in due time. One thing I'd love to find, though, is someone who's been through the ringer time and time again and can actually help me learn from their mistakes, as well as giving me insight as whether or not I'm making the right moves at the moment. Perhaps a lot of this is purely psychological, and I just need to take a step back and breathe and reinforce my conviction a little. I just wouldn't mind having a bit of help right now to add some reassurance on my current path. So where can I find a mentor for me?
That's a good question. There's a lot of mentee type focused communities out there. I don't know, like I think the best thing is to, the best mentors that I've found anyway have come through just kind of curiosity and more friendship, and you're not really going out and saying like, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, but you're looking for somebody who is interested in what you're doing, can provide context, and like is open to really having a discussion with you every so often. It doesn't have to be this rigid mentorship mentee type role. It can be a reciprocal friendship, with somebody. And so I've seen people find mentors, on Twitter saying, hey, I'm looking for a group of other SaaS founders to share ideas, like starting a group. We're going to meet every Friday, or we're going to meet once a month, and see who's interested. I've seen that happen also, and those types of asks also happen on Slack. And so that's the other way where, joining SaaS specific or even vertical specific Slacks where you can start to just have conversations with people. The other one that we've talked about a few times here is actually a venture that Headway Ventures is a part of, called Kinetic, where they essentially intro you to other people in the SaaS space or in the startup space, and you can have conversations. And then after your third intro, you can move into what they call coffee clubs, essentially where you're doing this sort of mastermind once a month or once every 2 weeks with a group of founders that are similar to you to really bounce ideas around and have that accountability together. So there's no really one specific space that I can think of. Maybe going into, if we knew a little bit more about your vertical and who you were serving, there might be some more targeted communities. But I think just being more active and coming to help and being open and vulnerable about what your challenges are, I think will draw people to help, and that would be one spot. So as far as like trying to take action to find a mentor, looking into your network, looking into people on your team, and just seeing, do you know anybody who, any other founders who are in the SaaS space, that you could talk to just to bounce ideas around, and look for friends of friends or connections of connections, and reach out to folks to try and get that going. So
Yeah, in my mind, it's like, I think you mentioned Twitter. Just finding a business that you admire or look up to or like the progress that they're making. If you can get in contact with their founder, just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for a friend to help me. I'm on a similar journey. It looks like um, you went through this already. I'd love to just kind of, maybe have coffee with you every other month or something like that, or once a month, just to like, help exhaust like all the thoughts you might be having in your head and have someone that you can relate with. So yeah, so I think because that journey, you can get stuck in your head a lot, like you kind of said. They shared, maybe it's purely psychological, identity crisis type stuff. So I think it's important to have someone that's, like you said, has been through it. So if you find that person and find a company you admire, just reach out to them and see. You just never know what kind of friendships you can create there. So awesome. Well, we don't have any more questions today. So if you're watching on YouTube and you have a question, in the meantime, we're going to share kind of some upcoming events. If you have a question on YouTube, be sure to ask it before we wrap things up for today. But otherwise, we can go into sharing what's coming up from Headway. Let me just get the events page up here. All right, awesome. So actually tomorrow we have a live stream event with our development team. So we'll have Tim, Kelsey, Chris, and Maria talking about how you can create better code and do it faster. So they'll be walking through the tools, the processes, and automation that you can use to have more more successful projects and have more speed, confident speed, I should say, in what you're doing. So I'm excited to have them share that with the community. It'll be kind of a really candid discussion. I know that they shared a couple of things with me this week. I'll just kind of walk through. Let's see here. So the first thing is they're going to talk about establishing code conventions and automating enforcement, and then they'll go through how you can stay on the same page with other teams, so design teams and product teams, some practices for catching bugs, and then the idea of eliminating boilerplate and some of the things around that. So looking forward to that one. We also have later this month, Ryan and Robert from the product team will be talking with John Zaratsky, the author of the Sprint Book and Make Time. So if you have questions for John, be sure to join us, and they'll be having a candid discussion with him about design sprints and just kind of what he's been working on lately with some new ideas and ventures. So that's pretty cool. And then Clint will be also sharing design team alignment through storytelling as well. So how do you kind of keep your design team aligned to the aspect of story and how that relates to the product and their customers? So super excited to have Clint share that. And then if you're curious, like we have a lot of this content on our YouTube channel, but also on our website, you can find our whole video library with things on things that are most recent that we had lately, in case you missed it, product strategy, design, and development. You can click through. And you can find stuff on Figma, design systems, React JS tutorials, all that kind of stuff. It's all here for you to learn from. So, well, awesome. I don't think we have any more questions coming in. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us, Vlad. Good to hear. Yeah, happy to have you. I'll share your little comment there. Yeah, we're not sure how YouTube recommended us either, but we're thankful that YouTube did. Before we wrap up, Vlad, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. If you have a question, just hop in the chat there. I know it's kind of last minute here, but otherwise we were going to wrap things up for today. But thanks for joining us, and yeah, thanks again, Caitlin, if you're still watching. She said first time joining. Thanks for doing this. Love the idea. So it's cool to get this kind of feedback. Well, awesome.
Yeah, the only thing that I had that I wanted to mention is that Headway is hiring. So
Oh
I
yeah,
wanted
true.
to plug that. We're hiring across product design and development. Actually, we have a new opening for a brand new web designer as well, which will join Jacob and I on the sales and marketing team to help us to continue to create sub brands of Headway and really help make all of these types of things possible. So if you're interested or know somebody that is, would love to see your application come through. Mention you saw us here, but we're hiring for across a lot of different disciplines. Even in development, we're hiring for React, Rails focus, Elixir and Phoenix, and a variation of senior and standard developers. So yeah, feel free to apply, and everything is captured here as far as our benefits and everything, so you can see what Headway has to offer, and hopefully that aligns well with what you're looking for. We do quite a bit to continue trying to find opportunities to offer more benefits and really make Headway a great place for us to work and also do some of the best work of our lives together. So would love to see y'all, invite y'all to come and apply.
Everyone's hired. Everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Whoever's on this call is now part of the team. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for being here. I don't think we have anything else. I think, yeah, we talked about events, talked about that we're hiring, and we'll have more events coming up also in May as well. So be on the lookout for that. And awesome. So yeah, so hopefully you can tune in tomorrow. Otherwise, we're here every Wednesday, just like this, at 11 a.m. Central. Sometimes it's the full hour, depending on how many questions we get. Sometimes we do a little bit shorter. But we're here to help you reach your goals, answer any questions you may have. So yeah, thanks everybody for being here. And until next time, take care.